Today is a throwback episode from the archives. I realized that maybe if you started following me recently, you haven't gone all the way back and dug through past episodes. So I'm doing a thing this summer called Memory Mondays, where I'm sprinkling in some of my favorite ones from the past. So this one is one with my mom. It was our first one that we did together, and it was talking about the different lessons that she taught me over my life from childhood all the way through adulthood. It was originally a two-part episode, but we have pushed it together into one episode for you today. So let me know. I hope you enjoy it. I love my mom so much, so I'm gonna enjoy re-listening to it either way, and I'll see you on the other side. Hi, welcome to Haven. This is a podcast that's a safe space for curiosity and conversation. Welcome to season 2, by the way. I don't know if you're watching this or if you're listening on audio, but if you see it, I am in a new location. I'm filming from my home on the couch because I make up the rules. I get to decide where to film. I get to decide that it's season 2 out of nowhere, just because. So trying new things, different spots, different ideas. The next couple episodes will actually be a part of a relationship series. So whether that's spouses, parents, kids, exes, best friends, a little bit of all of it mixed together. But today, I'm curious about what my mother taught me. What my mother taught me, or more aptly and tongue-in-cheek named, the facts of life and what my mother taught me. Because if you're under 40, you may not know the show, The Facts of Life, but it was very popular in the 80s. And my mother, Lisa Whelchel, played Blair Warner. And she taught me a lot of things outside of even just who she is as an actress, obviously. But I want to at least start off, welcome, Mom.
It's so good to be here. This is really fun. Not only are the roles reversed because you're on the lights and the camera, and that's not anything you were ever interested in doing, but I also love it because I've been listening and watching your podcast, and I've been learning from you, and I just love the role reversal.
Thank you, Mom. You know, even the idea of having you on here is because I did that episode about blind spots, and you had written me this really thoughtful, intentional email talking about it for me, and I put a clip online, and it garnered like 1 million views, and everyone was commenting like, what? A healthy mother? What's that like? Or like, can you have your mom on? Like, what is it like to enjoy her and to want feedback? And they had no clue who you were. Like, I'm sure most of my listeners have didn't know prior, or if they did now, it's like, oh, awesome, cool.
Yeah. Who's that? I'm going to have to check that out on YouTube.
That's not true.
Unless YouTube is too old now, too.
Maybe I guarantee my LinkedIn followers will probably be excited about this one. But no, like, people were truly like, can you have your mom on? Can you have your mom on? And because sure, acting's glitz and glamour and your whole life, but like, to me, your mom, like, you're my mom and you are the best mom.
And we can fill in your viewers because I walked in, she says, wow, Mom, when you wash your hair and put makeup on, you look really great. So.
Yes, I was like, my breath was taken away, and I was like, wow, when you put in effort, like, it's pretty substantial. Like, I always think you're beautiful, but like,
I don't put in the effort.
You never put in effort.
No.
Never.
No, I was the opposite of Blair.
Yeah. But I like that, though, because it's like a little in your back pocket.
It is. If I need it for something special, like my daughter's podcast.
Yeah. It's under promise, over deliver.
There you go.
Yeah, I like it on there. But I'm so glad you're here because what I want to talk about is not only to the mother-child, but like, it evolves. What it is like in toddlerhood is different than in preteen, than in high school and adult. And so I'm now doing weekly mini episodes, so a little shorter. But I had already written all the content for this one to be a longer one. So we're going to make it in 2 parts. This first part is going to talk about the mother-child dynamic up until high school. And then the second part is going to be like high school, adult, college, because they're very different tracks. And you were a very different mother.
Yeah. Not only do the children change and grow and evolve, so inherently the relationship needs to grow and change and evolve, but hopefully the mother is also growing and changing and evolving. And so that really, you don't want to look back on your relationship with your child and either one of you to have stayed the same, because that means one of you is not growing. But growing means you're becoming something new, and anything new, there's an element of mystery and fear involved. So I do think that, unless you're feeling a little bit of fear, then you're maybe not growing.
Isn't she so well spoken, guys? Like, how beautiful is that? You just made that up off the cuff of just nowhere. She doesn't know anything we're talking about today. Like, I gave her a little like, oh,
I know a little bit about you.
You know about me. But I showed her like a little notes, but it's going to be a fun surprise.
And the good thing is that as we joked about earlier, I have the worst memory. And I know in one of your episodes where you mentioned that you have a bad memory too. But Clancy, we really need Clancy in here for, that part where you have to just check everything through the legal or
the fact checkers.
That's right. The fact checker. We need Clancy here for a fact checker. Otherwise we can just make it up.
Yeah. And I think we'd be like, that's close enough.
Yeah. I think that happened.
I think that happened.
That's what I remember. Sure.
So true. We're not really reliable narrators.
No.
Okay, I want to start out with like childhood, young childhood. You as a mom
Well, I was born and raised in Texas.
Okay.
Oh, not that young.
Read
not my
her biography if you want to know about her. I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah. This is all about you.
This is called Haven.
The facts of life are all about you.
Oh, clever. Call back to her theme song, everyone. Okay, for real though. Childhood. You were a different parent to us as little kids.
Yeah.
Like we looked in the baby boxes. There are 17 baby boxes for each of us as children, and they're all very special to us. But you like stored it, you scrapbooked, like you have so much documented. But we looked at one of our day sheets of like what we did each day, and you had broken it out every 15 minutes. And it was 3 columns, like a Tucker, Haven, Clancy.
4 actually, and mom.
Oh,
so it was an Excel spreadsheet. I had 3 children within 3 years. So that means I had 3 babies in diapers, 3 toddlers, 3 elementary, 3 junior high, 3 high school, 3 college. 3 weddings. It's all back. So I had to be uber organized. So organized. AKA controlling.
Yeah. It worked. I felt very safe as a kid. But it would literally, it was so interesting because the breakdowns, it would be like Haven reading time. And you would let us go find a reading space. So I'd like go under the piano to read. Then it was like Tucker, 15 minutes, go shoot basketballs outside. Clancy, 15 minutes, one-on-one with mom. Or like, it wasn't just go do this, and then it was boring stuff. You put really awesome stuff throughout the day. Or it was like, we're going to go to a museum, and do some science experiments. Like, how did you choose how to structure the day?
Well, I started with what I wanted each of you to internalize and experiences that I wanted you to have. And then, it's not unlike how I've written books. What is it I want to say? Well, okay, which of these kind of clump together and fit together? And then what's the heading for each of those? And so that's what I did with you as a kids. Kids, I wanted you to learn how to just to be able to pick up a book and read a book, and that to know that can take you into another world, and that's fun and that's enjoyable. It's not something that you have to do. It's something you get to do. I wanted you to have lots of arts and crafts and creative time. So Barney was big back then. So you had the Barney box, which was really just a scrap of all kinds of things to create from. I wanted you to be outside in nature. So there would be the outside time. I wanted you to learn how to be able to play by yourself. And so each of you had alone time where there was nothing. You just go in your room and you don't come out until the timer rings and you figure out what to do. So it was really just all these kinds of either character things I wanted to build in you or experiences I wanted you to have. And I did want to make sure that I had one-on-one time with each of you since you were so close in age. And then I just put it on a spreadsheet.
I love that. So tell us even too, because you were a bit of a different parent to each child in that we had different unique needs. Like there was some that translated over, but the way that you even kind of would talk to us was different, where you would say like the different color schemes for each child. And I remember kind of internalizing that of like, oh, like this is uniquely me. Like, can you talk a little bit about how you selected those?
Yeah, because you were so close in age, people would oftentimes kind of lump you together, but then they would say, well, are they different? And so I would, I didn't really want to label you, he's the this one, she's the that one. so I said, if you think of it in terms more of color, they each embody color groups. And so Tucker, who just all boy, ADD, what you see is what you get. He's like your basic primary, 8-pack of crayons, fire engine red, full of life green, just sunshiny yellow, but not so complicated that he's the 64-pack with the sharpener built in.
No, he's very what you see, what you get.
Absolutely. Haven, and I came up with these all when you guys were under the age of 4 or 5, because personalities really do show up very, very early on, as any mom or dad can tell you. Haven was more the jewel tones. So just midnight blue, scarlet, burgundy red, just deep, rich gold, really deep, beautiful, complicated, mysterious, inviting colors that you go into those colors. There's just a treasure chest, a mine. There are gems somewhere hidden in this dark cave. And then at first, Clancy, we thought of pastels, because she's always been, very sweet, compliant, people pleaser. But she does have, every once in a while, a lot of sparkle will come out. So fluorescent seemed perfect for her. Razzle dazzle raspberry, lime green, absolutely sparkling hot pink with glitter inside. So those were the color schemes for each of my children. And I felt that that was a good expression of their essence without boxing them into certain labels.
I love you, Mom.
I love you, sweetheart.
How could I not feel loved hearing your mom describe you that way? Like that to me is just, you and I went to lunch like a couple weeks ago, and I was kind of talking to you of like, Aaron's amazing. My kids are amazing. I have so many close relationships, but when I look back, like I really do feel like you're the love of my life.
Wow. That's just really powerful and heavy.
No pressure.
No pressure there.
You're my best friend. Am I your best friend?
It's
But
so
I
beautiful.
mean it though.
Thank
Like you
darling.
just you.
I can't say that you're the love of my life because your siblings
Oh,
watch
you're
this podcast.
you're on my siblings' podcast right now, because this is called Haven. I think you can. I think you can say it. No, it's fine. It's fine. Whatever. And you're married. Whatever.
And your heart just expands with every love,
Okay. Well,
just like your belly does,
just like
and that includes marriage.
That's so true. No, I stand by. You're the love of my life.
Thank you,
I love
baby.
you so, so much. And it also, the childhood thing of like the unique time, especially with 3 kids back to back, there was a thing that you instilled at night where you called it window time. And it was, you would come sit on our beds, tell us like, how'd you come up with it and what did you ask and why did you do that?
Because life was very busy with 3 children so close together, and much of the time, just to get through, I needed to kind of, yes, you had these 15-minute increments, but we went places together and did things together. And even when we were individual, somebody was from the other room wanting something. So I really wanted to make sure that I had one-on-one time with each of you. And so I discovered, as many moms do, that the nighttime is when the kids are stalling. They don't want to go to bed. And so I decided, well, I will take advantage of that. And I implemented window time. And so after baths and teeth brushing and pajamas, each child was able to lay in their bed and read a book, even if that meant just looking at the pictures, while I spent at least 15 minutes when you were little, longer as you got older, with each child. And I would just sit on your bed. And I called it window time because it really was the most possibility for the window of your soul, because you were the day was done, you were rested, you were open, you didn't want to go to sleep, and you were looking forward to this time. And because it was every night, you knew that you could count on having one-on-one time with me every night. So oftentimes you would save up something that you wanted to talk to me about if it was exciting and you didn't want your siblings in the middle of it, or if it was something that was a little scary or confusing, you knew there would be a time then you could share it with me. So I would ask you, what was your high of the day? What was your low of the day? Was there any questions that came up that you wanted to ask? Anything you were confused about? Was there anything you wanted to confess? Because you knew that if you confessed it, especially at window time, and I wanted to teach you that confession felt good, and it's actually better because you knew that I wasn't going to punish you. I was going to celebrate your confession, and it was another way of just kind of staying clean from the day.
I love it. And going back to memory, Clancy, the one of our family who has the best memory, one time was telling us that she saved up one thing she wanted to confess at window time, and she was so embarrassed. She put like her sheet over her head, and she was like, "Mom, I blew Andrew a kiss today." And when you were talking to her about it, you were like, "Oh, well, I don't know if you need to confess about that. Tell me about it." And it broke down, and he was across the soccer field, not even looking at her. And then she just goes like this.
A little side kiss.
Little side kiss that she blew it, and like she felt so bad. So now Aaron and I will look at each other and go, "Hey." And blow like a kiss across the room. But sweet Clancy, she carried a lot of...
She did. She still carries
a lot of Catholic guilt, and we weren't Catholic.
We weren't, no.
I don't know where that came from. But I love that. Makes me want to instill it with my kids. I feel so bad. I'm like, oh, I should probably do that.
You do so much with your kids. I really admire the way you parent. I've learned a lot, and I've really had to negotiate my own relationship with regret by watching you as a parent and realize, the truth is, let me just say to any parents out there, young or old, you will do it wrong. You will be proven wrong. You will be proven wrong all the way. Whether you are, safe and structured, then they were not allowed to express their feelings enough. If they allow to express their feelings, then you weren't, structured enough. So there is no doing this right. And thankfully, there's so much more available now. I mean, who you follow on Instagram and TikTok and the things you learn. I mean, we had books and everything, but there's so much wisdom and so much just awareness and intention around parenting. And had I had that, I think I would have loved it and I would have implemented those things. I didn't, and I regret that I didn't have it available, but I do have to be careful not to beat myself up for, the mistakes that I made and the regrets that I had. We're all doing the best we can.
I completely believe you're doing the best you could. That said, what's a regret you have?
Oh my gosh. Well, I guess we can decide whether we leave this in or not, but I'm going to be honest. When I think about what were we thinking with the whole spanking thing, the truth is I want to be honest about the fact that we can all, especially as a culture, we can be blinded because everyone else is doing it, or the authorities are saying it, the authorities in our lives are saying it. Mm-hmm. I mean, this is not just in the last few generations. In generations and generations, the culture says this is acceptable. And then later on, you look back and you go, wow, how blind was I to think that that was okay? Mm-hmm. How blind was I to think that it was okay to spank my children? And yet, not only was it considered okay, it was considered good parenting. And I think it's a lesson for all of us. Mm-hmm. I do, because I think there's no telling what we're all doing today, because everybody says this is the right and the good and the best thing to do. And we're going to look back, maybe 20, 50 years down the road, and we're going to go, my goodness, where was my head? What was I thinking? Well, we probably weren't thinking to some degree. We were just kind of going along with those that we trusted, and everybody around us was doing it. That doesn't make it right, but it also doesn't mean that we should, beat up on ourselves, because I think we need to hold both of those truths. We are doing the best we can, And hopefully we learn. And when we learn, we look back and we think, oh, wow, I wouldn't do that anymore.
It's so interesting you say that, because even in this previous episode, we are talking about parenting and like just the things where I'm sure my kids will come and say, Mom, we don't do that anymore. And like, here's why. But it's like past generations spanked. I choose not to for all of those reasons of like, I don't.
Good. I'm glad you don't, because I would spank you if you spanked my grandchildren.
Yeah, I'm sure that's in our baby box somewhere, whatever little thing you spanked us with. But like, I don't want to teach my children, hey, it's never okay to hit, but then I'm upset with them and I, hit them. That to me is a little bizarre, but it is having to be held with so much grace, because previous generations spanked. The ones after that would send to timeout because they thought that's better than spanking a child is, okay, go and think about what you did, have time, in your head to calm down. And then my generation, even to that one, is like, oh, you're sending us away into the corner until we have more approved emotions. You're isolating us unless we're giving you an appropriately deemed behavior, but you're going to slice off connection, like
100%, because I don't think there's anything more painful than feeling rejected by your parent or not good enough to be in the same room or separation is at the core of the deepest grief and suffering there is in any situation.
Mm-hmm.
So to separate your child from you because they did something wrong or bad, yeah, we would have thought, oh yeah, that's so much better than spanking and it makes sense and all that. And I'm not beating anybody else up on it because I did the same thing. But now once we know better, as Maya Angelou says, we do better.
Yeah.
And that is not that's emotional spanking to a child, to be sent away because they've done something that is undeserving of connection. And staying connected through discipline, at least right now, feels like just the best way to handle things. But who knows, 20, 30 years from now, we'll learn more and realize, no, that's not the right way.
I'll be sitting on Isley's podcast saying, well, I did it this way and it was wrong. It was culturally what everyone said I should do. No, probably though. I want to go into now preteen and puberty.
I love the change in
the
voice.
Change in tone.
Oh, I want to go into preteen and puberty.
The dark years.
Okay.
No, not dark. I just remember you proactively telling me, you're just like, I don't know, I was probably 8 or 9. You're like, hey, in a couple years, by the way, there's going to be something called puberty. And you may not recognize yourself. Everything may feel weird. Just want to give you a heads up. And I was like, what?
No, that was actually, this is the whole memory thing. Each of you, when you turned 10 years old, we took, like, your dad took Tucker and they went on a
Oh, no, I'll never forget that. This was in addition to that.
Okay, but we talked about puberty and the facts of life.
Oh, man.
When you were 10 years old.
That's
your 10-year-old trip, which again, I'm looking back, this is all exciting. Oh, we're going to special mother-daughter time and we're going to do fun things and
bait and switch. Yeah. Another way
you did that 3 times?
Okay. I will be doing that differently too.
I know you will. Of course you will. Please do.
Okay. I'll explain how you did it and then I'll explain just the gleaning the wisdom and then going a different route. So what you guys did was pretty weird. And I get it in theory where you go, okay, when you're 10, you choose a special location. Like Tucker, did he do Legoland or something?
I think so.
You get to go somewhere special and then we just have like a big 10-year-old talk or whatever. No clue what that meant. And then Tucker came back and he was like, yeah, it was fun until they took me to dinner and talked to me. And I was like, what? Then my birthday came. And then when we were going, Tucker was like, bring a barf bag. And I was like, what? And then you sit me down and you teach me about sex. And my first question was, Pastor Jack did that? I was like, who's the holiest person I know? Like, and they're doing what you're telling me? And I remember being just like, whoa, pretty weird. And then, you know who beat the system though?
Clancy,
because Clancy, she went on the trip. She took advantage of the trip. And then before you guys started talking to her, she goes, I don't think my heart's ready for what you're about to tell me. And she got to avoid the talk for a while.
She got another trip.
She got another trip. That's the way to beat the system, man.
Yeah, well, that's what you learn when you're the baby in the family.
Yeah, she worked the system. I wish I had thought of that. But again, different generation. I took a workshop, the Birds and the Bees workshop, which is amazing, of how to teach your kids about sex. And they're like, don't do one big conversation. Because also in the 90s, like 10 years old was sufficient. Now kids are going to hear sooner. And it's like, you can't hold it up. If you want to be the first one, then you have to do it prior. And it's basically the drip, drip, drip method. Where in toddlerhood, we're talking about seeds and eggs. We're talking about, okay, Isley, did you know when you plant a seed, things grow when you have the environment there? Or look at this egg. Some of them make chickens, some of them don't. Isn't that interesting? And you lay this whole groundwork of age-appropriate conversations leading into sex versus like, you've never known about this, and now here's level 10. So intense.
I love how this podcast has shifted gears. Now it's all the things that I did that now we are not doing it that way.
That's true.
Anymore, but it's so true. And I mean, I'm so glad this next generation is reaping the benefit of more self-awareness and more training, and really the experts that are out there and available.
Yeah.
Because also the experts that were available at our time, they were in their own limited perspective.
That's a great point. Let's bring it back to the light side. We've been on the dark side. But if anyone listens to the way you talk about us, like, there was such a foundation of love. I feel like even this, like, I don't know how many grown women can say, hey, I don't love it when you did this when you were parenting. And then to be received in an open dialogue, like, even that to me is huge, where you're receptive to be like, there may be a better way. Like, I did the best I could. And like, that to me is such a testament to even the relationship as it grows. Because at the time growing up, that structure felt safe. That maybe intense, like, time schedule, I loved. I knew what was coming. I knew where the boundaries were. I knew when I could talk to you at night. Like, I felt very in the know. But I think the danger people can run into, though, is not evolving the relationship as it grows up. So, like, even in puberty, though, my childhood experience was you gave us more room to play. You gave us more autonomy and more independence and let us kind of figure things out, too, where I think some of the pitfalls of parents is the mother being like, okay, this schedule worked for kids. Let's make this schedule work for preteens. And I don't know if it always does.
I don't think it really ultimately ever does, because it's so tempting. If you've been able to have some control over your children when they're little, because you want to keep them safe. And so you want to be able to say, don't do this, and they not do it, because that if they go against that, they're going to be hurt. So you want to be able to control their environment. And it's really tempting to continue that, maybe even have even more control the more autonomy they have, because they're in junior high and high school. And even back when you were little, there were a lot of dangers. Now, even more so, things that children at 12, 13, and 14 really do not have the capacity to make the best decisions, given the amount of freedom that's available in this day and age and the dangers that are out there. So, of course, every parent's going to want to control even more. But that, unfortunately, it just doesn't work, for one thing.
Yeah, when I was thinking about the kids that I knew that, like, if they had really controlling parents in junior high, they would do one of three things typically. They would either conform to their parents and have no idea their own identity when they became an adult.
That would be me.
Yeah, like, they would conform and then do everything their parents said. And then when they were off on their own, they felt really clueless. Or I knew the kids that would rebel and just be explosive for junior high, high school, just so intense with their parents. Or I knew kids who would hide everything. And maybe they looked like they were conforming. No one knew they were rebelling, but really they were lying to everyone around them. And that's the danger of being so controlling when your kid needs that autonomy and freedom.
And I'm glad you used the word danger, because that's the danger. And that is the danger, because you don't want your children ultimately to be people pleasers or just against and rebel out of everything, or to be hiding and feel with either shame or just deception, even self-deception. So there's going to be danger. probably the better idea is to err on the side of danger of letting life teach the lessons to the children. Now, obviously within limits. I mean, there's obviously where parents, whether they're 5, 14 or 8 or 17 or whatever. So you still want to protect them as much as you can, but also you want them to be able to learn lessons from life, because that's going to be the most impactful, and they're not going to rebel against that or just do it because you say. Ultimately, they're going to have to learn just the lessons of life. And this way you can keep the relationship, because each of those scenarios that you just pointed out, there is disconnection. If you're a people pleaser as a child, then the child is disconnecting from themselves in order to stay connected to you. But that's not true connection. If they are rebelling, then they are just hatcheting the cord, and there's no connection between parent and child. And if there's hiding, it's disconnecting from the parent and themselves, both. So the goal is to stay connected with your children at all age, and be able to go through lives and their lives with an open, kind of an open book policy. Maybe make the deal, and we talked about this. If you come and confess something to us, there's not going to be retribution, because this is life and you're open to us working through this together. And I think that's a deeper value to teach your children, because they're all going to make mistakes. We're all going to do things wrong. And then on top of that, it teaches grace. And I think that the only way that you can know grace is to actually need grace. And I think a lot of, especially in the faith community, we want to talk about grace, but we're not really very good at living out giving grace. We're much better about living out judgment. But grace is really where true growth happens anyway. So they're going to grow and evolve as children in a climate of love and grace, much more than judgment and punishment.
I think it's so, so true on all of that, because also if they're making those mistakes and feel comfortable talking to you about it, like, you then get input and helping them become the internal voice of how to handle problems. Where if they don't come to you, then they're just going to be handling it with their immature brains, not really knowing what to do it. Or if they're adults off on their own, those problems are going to be so much bigger, and they're not going to have the skills or the tools for how to handle the problems when they actually can knock them over.
And children, especially as they get older, there's just this natural, as they're individuating, wanting to be against the parent. So it's very natural if a parent says the sky is blue, for them to say, well, technically, it's actually, that's a reflection of the ocean. It's not like, okay, yeah, okay, you're right. So when you guys were kind of growing up, and I remember there was certain music that Tucker wanted to listen to, as he got older, and marijuana was part of the equation in the question, rather than just say, no, that's not good for your body, or not good for your mind, or not good for your eyes, what you guys wanted to watch. I would say, well, tell you what, come to me with your reasoning behind why you want to watch this, why you want to do this, why you want to see that. And oftentimes when you had to actually take a moment, for all of us now, it's basically mindfulness, not just on autopilot, being driven by your senses, and your drives, but to pause and reflect and think. And you would bring it to me with your argument or your reasoning behind it, and on your own come to the conclusion, actually that's really not congruent with my values, or that's actually probably not best for me. Or even if you had to just save face and say something, but then you had time to think about it and maybe even kind of experiment with it a little bit, but then realize you ultimately, that's not something you wanted anyway. But at least you had the independence and the autonomy to be able to make an informed decision based on what you had thought through, rather than what we just told you can do it or not do it.
I feel like that's kind of revolutionary for parents. So I feel like parents kind of have the mindset of like, this is right, this is wrong, go in this.
And I want to just, speak up for parents here. It's all based on love and our own fear. Most of all of us as individuals, and certainly in the area of parenting, it's so easy to parent out of fear. And I'm so afraid that they're going to get in trouble, or they're going to get in a bad relationship, or something bad's going to happen, or they're not going to learn this lesson. And so when we parent out of fear, that is when we tend to be over controlling, overprotective, imposing our beliefs and not letting our children be who they are. But at the bottom of it, it is love still.
I like that a lot because it's also what's scarier than high school, which is the next episode we're going to talk about. So first, thanks for being on this. Thanks for being on the couch. I like being in my house so much more.
No, this is wonderful. I love it too. I just wish the babies were here.
I know. They're in school, preschool, so we can film this. But okay, this is the part 1 of the episode I'm doing with my mother. We talked childhood up to preteen, junior high. The next episode is going to be high school through adulthood.
Haven, what's the best part about a fight?
Winning.
Winning?
No, I'm kidding. You don't really win in marital fights.
You can win. I think when you come together in the right way, maybe what you thought was winning isn't winning at all.
I think I know your answer to what your favorite thing about a fight is.
Make up sex afterward?
Okay, maybe I didn't. Anyways, we have created a course called How to Fight Better. It's under our umbrella of Pillow Talk, which is about just conversations that you can have with your spouse. We brought in our actual marriage counselor of 12 years, Dr. Jonathan Cood, to help us and explain the tools that he's been teaching us that have helped us have what we feel like is a really thriving, enjoyable marriage, and one that we're proud of. And so we were like, how can we share these experiences, but also the professional person who taught us how to do this with the world? So you can go to joinpillowtalk.com right now to get How to Fight Better. Okay, back to the episode. Hi, welcome to Haven. This is a podcast that's a safe space for curiosity and conversation. I'm your host, Haven, and today I'm curious about the facts of life and other lessons my mother taught me, part 2. The facts of life and other lessons my mother taught me, part 2. So please welcome back my mom.
Thank you.
Long time no see. So in the previous episode, we talked a little bit about children and junior high, and now we're going to do beyond that. And even when I was thinking a little bit about, okay, what's my hope for having you on here other than like we're going to have a good time and, you know, people were curious about what is it like to have an emotionally in tune mother? I feel like that was a really big question. I think I want to show people that it's possible to have a healthy relationship with your mom, and that, or even with your kids, or whichever seat you are on this side of the couch, that I just don't think we see it often. I don't think we see it in media. I don't think we hear about it often. And it's not without hard work or conflict or snags. Like, it's two humans, but I want the takeaway to be, it's absolutely possible to have a great relationship with your mom, or if you didn't have one, for you to draw a line in the sand and do that with your children.
And I'd like to add that it's never too late to have a good relationship with your children. And one of the things that has really surprised me is that you can actually, in some strange universe, multiverse perhaps, you can affect your children's lives backwards. And I don't know how that works, but I have noticed that as I have been more intentional about doing my own work, and again, the goal is to have a healthy relationship, a healthy parent-child relationship. Well, that really, within it is the word healthy. So you really have to work on your own mental health, your own just emotional health as a mom. And so a lot of moms don't have that luxury, especially when their kids are little. And then they think, oh, it's too late. And we have so many regrets and we would have done it differently. And perhaps there's fractures in the relationship. And I really want to encourage any of your listeners that you can start now getting healthier, because it's really powerful to be able to go back to your children and just say, I'm sorry. I would have done it differently. Or now that I look back and I'm learning about myself, I realize I was probably, too controlling, or I wasn't involved enough. Tell me what your experience was. And that is very healing for a child. And not only for the parent-child relationship, it's healing for that child. And because oftentimes, there is a arrested development that can happen but you can also go back and heal that fracture, and it changes the dynamic in other healing kind of is exponentially rapid, more, what's the word I'm looking for? It's
Expedited?
maybe so. Exponentially expedited. Exceptionally. Except in other cases, no.
This is egregious.
No. Okay.
Wait, you missed it. I just said egregious. E.
Yeah, but it wasn't X. See, so it wasn't quite right on.
But it was alliteration.
It was alliteration, but it wasn't next level.
It wasn't exceptional.
There you go. There you go. Except in those cases. Okay, sorry.
Where were we?
I think we were talking about that if you do the healing even retroactively, then other healing can build upon that even faster.
I really like that. I'm a super fan of Dr. Becky. She wrote that book, Good Inside, that I love.
And I'm a super fan of Dr. Becky because you're a super fan, and I see the impact that she's had in your life as you are raising these beautiful grandchildren.
I've never met you, Dr. Becky, but I'm a big fan. You are just incredible. But she has a TED Talk where she was basically saying, like, imagine, even as an adult, like, what if your parent called you and said, hey, I'm so sorry. Like, exactly what you just said. And she was saying that, like, it's never too late to write the last page of that story. Like, you think, oh, that chapter's closed. You can go back and add a page to it. And, like, how would that feel? Like, you feeling to receive that would feel amazing. So why don't we give our children that opportunity too?
It's so healing on so many different levels too, because children really do, we really do create their concept of God very much connected to the relationship with their parent. So if you can kind of go back and adjust something, like there was a fracture, a broken bone, you got to go back and actually kind of re-break it and let it heal. But it's also going to be stronger, or there's going to be scar tissue which is stronger. But if you let it then heal, then that's going to affect their most intimate relationships with their friends, with their spouses, their relationship with their concept of God. And then with themselves, because when that happened to them, you were God to them. So even if it didn't feel right to them and it hurt them, and growing up, they're realizing, she shouldn't have done it that way. There's still a little part of them that's questioning because, well, my parents did this. And so to even just say, no, I want to name it. That was not right. That was not healthy. That was coming from my own pain, and I put it on you, or that was become my own ignorance, but the impact was still the same. It clears it up and it makes it clear so the child can then actually move forward with right information, not this cloudy, well, it didn't feel right, but my mom said it and maybe I was wrong, and just clear it up so that healing can grow, more in a more healthy way from that point forward.
And I think it's so interesting of, like, yes, the parent's voice can be the voice of God, but it also turns to be their inner voice and how they think about, even in their head, where I remember this when I was dating Aaron and he spilled something and he was like, oh no, like he was so distraught. And my reaction was, accidents happen. Like, and it was something was broken and it meant, a lot to me or something, but I truly was like, accidents happen. And he kind of was dumbfounded. It never occurred to him that if you break something, even if it's valuable to someone else, that, like, it's an accident. And that's when I realized, oh, it's because you said that growing up. Everything. It was just immediate, like, accidents happen. And it became my inner voice.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love hearing that. And I know that there are other voices in your head that are from me, that were from my own.
I'm going to stop you. You're too hard on yourself. You're making this really big. And I promise you, like, you said that once where you're like, yeah, my therapist was like, you know what, Lisa, you definitely were a good enough mom. And that was enough. I'm sure it was more poetic and meant more to you. And I was like, you were more than good enough. Like, you're so hard on yourself. I think you were wonderful.
Well, I appreciate that. And actually hearing that I was a good enough mom was relieving to me because I had the pressure to be internal pressure to be a great mom or the best mom or a wonderful mom. And it was actually quite a gift of grace to hear you were a good enough mom, because then I can just breathe and relax and realize I'm going to make mistakes. And that's okay. I'm a good enough mom.
It's so interesting though, because to me, you were great because of that. Like, I think we're saying the same thing with different words. Like, to me, that's greatness. That's more than good enough. It's greatness to see a mom who's human, and to see a mom who messes up and shows me how to do that. It's not greatness to see a mom who never makes mistakes and got everything right, because I'm not going to. So how do I watch you do that so I can learn for myself?
Okay, thank you.
I know, it's like turning into an argument back and forth. You're more than good enough, lady. I don't know who your therapist is, but she's wrong. Just kidding.
Darling.
The point of this episode, high school, adulthood. I remember high school. You sat us all down and you said, high school can be amazing for you guys. I want you to have incredible experiences. We do have some boundaries that we expect you to abide by. And if you don't, it's your choice. But your high school experience is going to be really tough and really rocky and probably not fun for you. And you're like, if you go through our simple boundaries, we want you to have a good time, but we need you to go with these boundaries. And I saw Tucker blow through those boundaries and not have a good high school experience, my older brother. And I was like, yeah, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. I want to have an enjoyable time. So high school was great for me. But talking about parenting different kids, you really had to gear shift between all three of us in high school because we were three very different teenagers.
Yes, and birth order matters. You know, Tucker, as the firstborn, you know, I was making my mistakes on him and learning from them and adjusting. I really do think that, you know, as parents, we try to put aside money for college. Back in the olden days, if it was the girls for a wedding, you know, and half that for a boy. But I really do think that there needs to be a therapy fund that's also, you know, monthly, a little bit put in there, and double that for the firstborn.
And double for the firstborn.
Yes.
Yeah, that's probably a wise financial tip for everyone.
I think so.
I'm going to talk about my high school experience, though, not Tucker and Clancy's.
Okay.
Because, again, my podcast, they can come and talk about themselves. But for me, I had a great time, but I remember it wasn't from not doing the stuff I wanted to do. I remember at like 2 a.m, my friends are like, let's sneak out and go TP. And I was like, let me ask my mom. I was like, well, let's just see. I remember waking up being like, Mom, can we go TP this person's house? And you were like, yeah, just set the alarm when you're back so I know you're back. And I just went to my friends. I gave them a thumbs up. They're like, you literally woke her up to ask her? And I was like, yeah, I'm not about to sneak out of here. Like, that doesn't sound great with me and my moral code, but I'd love to go TP and vandalize this person's house. You know, there's gray areas.
If I remember correctly,
Okay.
which I may not, first of all, I was thrilled because some of my best memories as a kid were doing these pranks.
You're such a prankster.
I love pranks.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wanted you to have that experience.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I also said, as long as you set the alarm when you get back in and go back the next day and clean it up.
I forgot that part. I mean, I'm sure maybe we did it. I don't know if we ever actually did. And I just don't remember you saying that.
Okay. All right.
So my bad to Marcus Dingler.
Oh, they loved you. His mother loved you.
I loved his mother.
I know you did.
No, I love Brett Hawkins' mother.
Oh, that's the one.
Yeah.
But I liked Marcus too. I liked both of them.
I loved her so much. Man. Fell in love with her and not Brett.
I think she fell in love with you too.
Yeah, man.
Who wouldn't?
Thank you. We did say this was supposed to be mini episodes. In the last episode, we ran long because we just were having such a great time. And we need to move faster. Okay. So let's go to adulthood.
Okay.
And I think this is actually the biggest gear shift that mothers need to make. Children are going to go into adulthood regardless, but I feel like you did this really, really well, where there was a shift where you were also like, hey, I'm not going to mother you and tell you what to do at all. To the extent where I'd be like, no, please tell me what to do. But I got to ask. It was all my choice. And where I would see a lot of my grown friendships now having contentious relationships with their mothers is because the mothers are still parenting them and not gear shifting into this new phase of adulthood. So how did you do that? And what did it look like on your side of the fence? That's the first question. It's going to be a long question. The second one is, I remember you told me once, especially with young boys, if moms don't cut the umbilical cord, then the sons have to do that specifically, and it gets very, very painful. So how did you do that with me as a female? And then how did you do that with Tucker as a male, which is different?
Well, even using that little analogy, it's not even that if moms don't cut the umbilical cord. I like it better if the mom doesn't untie the apron strings, because that's even more gentle. That's even more, it's just, okay, it's time. I'm taking off the apron strings. You're done cooking, buddy. And now let's see who you're going to become. And if you don't, then yes, then there has to be some kind of rebellion, because there has to be individuation. Otherwise, it's not healthy. So I think if moms can consciously untie the apron strings, knowing it's going to happen. It can either be gentle or it can be harsh. It can either be on your terms, which is, okay, I'm going to just do this slowly, or it can be on the child's terms, which is, no, I'm living my own life. I'm doing it my way now, Mom. Sayonara. So that's one thing. As far as your first question goes, I'm going to just speak for myself in that it wasn't that hard, because I had learned that each person is very, very individual and very different. We all have our own path. I think we are born with, our own path, our own ways of being, distinct essence and personalities. And as parents, it's our job to create the greenhouse for that to grow safely in, but it's not my job to determine what that seed's going to produce or what fruit's going to come from that tree, whether it's going to be a tree that is knocked down and made furniture, or it's fruit, or it's a shade tree. That's within you. And so by the time that you are grown, I've done all I can to create a safe environment. It's my turn to sit back and watch you grow and become who you're supposed to be. And if I start interfering with that, then it's not going to be the healthiest plant. And so I think I really just so deeply, firmly believed that to have a position of curiosity and awe and respect and trust in the growing process. So it's actually a privilege to get to watch you each become who you are.
And it's kind of like the kids then have to switch too and be like, okay, I had a picture of my mom growing up. Like, who is my mom outside of being the secondary character to my story? Like, who was my mom before me? Who is my mom now? Like, even as an adult child, it's interesting to go back and revisit. So one thing that we did, which was really fun, was we went to lunch and I was like, what if we pretended that a mutual friend connected us and we have no idea about each other, and this is our first lunch, and we ask all of the questions, like, where are you from? Like, what siblings do you have? What'd you do for work? And it was cool because I would ask questions kind of knowing the direction, but then you would kind of give me something else I didn't anticipate. Or I would intentionally ask a follow-up question that I knew was probably wrong or like off on a trail, because that's what I would ask someone I didn't know. And you would be like, well, actually, I went this direction. And it was so fun to get to know each other as peers and adults.
Yeah, I loved it. I had so much fun. I could do that just all day long. And yes, we kind of know the general idea, or we think we do, but what's really fun is when we don't. And what's also fun is when the stakes aren't as high with a friendship, because on that day we were kind of shopping and we walked into this bookstore, and back in the day they had a lot of Christian bookstores. Now there's more of a kind of spiritual bookstores and things. And so we walked into this, and I said, do you like these kind of bookstores? And you said, no, I think they're silly. do you like them? And I said, yeah, I'm pretty fascinated with a lot of these authors. And she's, well, what do you like? What do you like about it? You know, and I said, well, I guess it's kind of like you're visiting a whole nother world. This is not a country or a bookstore or a world that I grew up in. And you get to go to a foreign country. You can decide whether you go to Italy, you can decide whether you like pasta or want wine with every dinner or, whatever that culture. But at least you're exploring it with curiosity. And so for me at 60, I just love still exploring. And, I could tell in your eyes and what you said was, well, that makes sense. It was no longer, well, that's silly. That's not for me. But it was like, oh, okay, I can kind of get why you would be interested. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's one of the reasons that it's really healthy to not just assume we know each other, but really get to know each other at every age and stage afresh, because hopefully we are a little bit different because we're growing.
So even if it's not taking your mom out to lunch and pretending you don't know each other, we all have relationships. So do you have any takeaway for the listeners who may want to revisit a relationship that they haven't considered from a different angle recently?
Well, I hadn't really thought about that, but when you asked that question, I thought, the very first person to have that getting to know you lunch with is yourself. Because I do think that we just think, well, this is who I am. This is who I've always been. And there may be ways that we're that way because of our own parents' relationship or our own culture. And we can kind of actually ask ourselves the question, but is that really me? So I would say, ask the questions about who you are. And then I would say, be who you are. Because I believe that warts and all, blind spots and all, weaknesses and all, that nothing is lost, that we are exactly who we're supposed to be, and that the people in our realm need us to be that person. They don't need us to be somebody you look up to. They don't need us to be Haven. They don't need us to be me. They don't need us to be, somebody on television. They need us to be you. So be the youest you can be, knowing that also means there's some things that you're still growing and you wish were different. But maybe that little edge, that little thread in the Navajo rug that isn't perfect is exactly what that person needs. And it also takes the pressure off. We can just relax and be who we are, knowing that that's exactly who that person in our life needs at that moment. And we can always go back and say, I'm sorry if we mess up.
That's such a beautiful note to end on. Thank you for coming, Mom. Thank you for mothering me. Thank you for mothering my listeners and giving them kind of insights into me, someone who I just think does relationships and motherhood so elegantly and beautifully and humanly. And it's a gift of my lifetime to be your daughter and have my life based on the foundation of love that you gave me.
Well, thank you, baby. I love watching you grow and become a beautiful woman, more on the inside than outside.
Thank you, Mama. Well, Season 2, baby. We're in it. That was part 2. That was the facts of life and other lessons my mother taught me. So I hope you enjoyed it. This is going to be a season about relationships. And so it's going to take different twists and turns in the coming episodes. And so please tune in. I also want to welcome you to sign up for my monthly newsletter. You can go to havenpod.com and put your information in there and then have some goodies hit your inbox each month. And then just the typical, go to YouTube, Instagram, TikTok at Haven the Podcast, follow, subscribe. And then my new request is to please share this with friends. My mom is a treasure trove of wisdom, so I'm sure something there would impact someone else. And I really want to grow a community out of this, of people who are interested in asking questions and following where they lead us. So thank you for being a part. Thanks for being here, Season 2, and I'll see you on the next episode.